I obviously know who you are, but just for the benefit of anyone who watches this video, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, that would be awesome.
Okay, well, my name's Newton Ewell. Draw stuff, have done it since professionally since 1990. And in that time, I've been from tabletop RPGs to video games to complete burnout to finally getting to the point where I'm drawing what I want to draw
Hmm.
and I want to draw it again. So
Yeah,
that's in a nutshell, that's what it is.
that's really cool. Yeah, you looking through my cursory Google searching, I noticed you've done a lot of like different art pieces for. I was mostly focusing on D&D stuff, but you've done a lot of art pieces for tabletop things, but also you've got some design credits going on. I guess when if you would self-describe, do you think that like of yourself as an artist first or more of like a tabletop designer first?
Um, Artist first, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the nice things being an artist did for me was allowed me to have a chance to try my hand at game design.
Right.
Actually, I guess I should say to do game design since I have credits. Um, Another thing I've learned is resumes don't mean a hell of a lot. Um, but that's another story. Anyway, yeah,
Oh, that's
drawing for TTRPGs gave me a chance to do a whole lot of stuff,
yeah,
stuff I never knew I could do.
that's
And
really cool.
yeah, it's great.
What was kind of the thing that got that started for you? Like what was your first step into the world of working with tabletop products and that kind of thing?
Okay. Um, First step was one of the worst interviews I ever had with an art director.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was pretty action packed. I was asked by folks close to me, you need to come in and, you know, show your work to TSR. Because you need work. And the fact of the matter is they can give it to you. So, and simply put, this art director tried his best to just totally shut me down. But suffice to say that he didn't. As a matter of fact, TSR shut him down. And his replacement, I got an interview with as well. And I was off and running.
Cool. What was the first project they had you working on?
TSR, I don't remember right now
Oh, that's okay.
because while that was happening, I was in the process of leaving my federal government job.
Okay.
And I had done some freelance stuff for TSR, but bottom line is Palladium was the first one to come knocking.
Okay.
And so I worked with them, and eventually TSR got me onto projects too. But, what can I say, man? It's kind of a blur. A lot of stuff happened at the same
For
time.
sure. And I mean, I know we're going back like over 30 years now. Like, yeah.
And, you know, stuff happened in rapid sequence too, which is the most bizarre thing. As a side note, I can tell you that I had determined that I was going to go full-time freelance the moment I made enough money to match my paycheck from the feds.
Yeah.
Things got so good, I beat my paycheck from the feds. And I wound up getting the job with Palladium because I was at Gen Con.
Okay.
And I was at Gen Con having so much fun getting introduced to people and all this other stuff. I totally forgot my resignation dinner.
Oh,
Hey, I wasn't going back.
for sure.
The heck with it, you know?
Yeah, you just didn't show up. Instead, you're playing tabletop games with people and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it was wild. It was wild.
That's cool.
First thing with TSR, I'm still trying to think. It escapes me.
That's okay. I was mostly, yeah, just curious because I like I said, I was just looking at some of your art credits and stuff, and there was like a whole bunch of stuff that was done for them and other companies and that kind of thing. So yeah, you've definitely got a wide profile, I guess you'd say, like lots of
Yeah.
kind of different stuff you've worked on, which is really neat. And I guess that kind of brings me to my next question. Is there any monster or any illustration that you've done really that stands out to you as like your favorite, or even if there's a couple of your favorite, like something you just really think back on, you're like, oh man, I loved working on that?
Okay. Now that the anxiety is over, now that the all that stuff, I guess if I'm gonna pick one and stick with it, hell, I can only pick two. The Dragon Dreadnought, which I did for Rifts, and the Big Gun piece, which is on my DeviantArt page, which I
Okay,
also did for Rifts.
cool.
And yeah, so you know, those are my two faves, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll track those down. I'll put them up in the video so people can see the pieces that we're talking about when we show this part. But that's really cool. And I guess as a follow-up to that, getting more into the spirit warrior, which was how this all kind of started, this whole
Yeah.
saga of me. I was digging, I was like, oh, this is such a cool monster, looking through all the old books, and I was like, who designed this? And I found your name and then found like this Twitter account. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is actually him. And now we're here. But yeah, I guess really what sent me down this rabbit hole was with the spirit warrior, because so many, especially with like the AD&D and Spelljammer monsters and stuff, a lot of them I find are inspired by other media and that kind of thing. And
Absolutely.
what tipped me off with the Spelljammer was the in in the monster entry for it, you had included that the Zwarth was the name of one that was like
Yes.
piloted by 4 or 5 different people, which is very like Voltron-esque. And it's like, okay, cool. So that's like an obvious nod to Voltron and stuff. And I was like, Zwarth, I wonder where that name came from. And I just punched that into Google, and that
Ding,
was
ding.
where Aura Battler Dunbine came
Yes,
up.
indeed.
And I was like, oh, this is the name of one of the mechs from the show. And then I like watched a few episodes of it. I went to
Ah,
watch just one episode of it, ended up watching like 3 or 4 because I was like, oh, this is a cool show. And I was like, they've pilot giant insectoid mechs in the show. And I was like, I wonder if that's, so that was what kind of led this to, that was the question. And as you said on Twitter, that was the inspiration for the
oh,
Spirit Warrior.
absolutely. Well, MC9, the Spelljammer Monsters Compendium, they flung prompts out to a bunch of people, and they were like, do you, whatever you want to do, if you can make it fit with Spelljammer, do it.
That's a lot of creative freedom.
Oh man, it's one of the happiest gigs I ever got. Cause I was like, I'm an anime head.
Yeah,
Fine. Give me the chance to import some of my favorite anime stuff to D&D, please. And pay me for it too.
yeah, score, right? Like,
Totally. So yeah, Dunbine is one of those shows that, well, for anybody who looks it up, I think my best elevator pitch for it is Macbeth with Mecha.
totally.
Um, and I first clapped eyes on the show not long after it came out. I'm one of those former tape trader people.
I was just about to say, was this like a tape situation? Okay, yeah, very cool.
Totally, totally. And I was blown away by the show. Um, the look of it, the world, the whole thing, just
Yeah, it's really cool. And it seems like a natural fit for kind of Spelljammer inspiration because it's got that sci fantasy thing going on, right? Like
exactly,
you have people in
exactly.
castles, but there are also like guns and motorcycles and stuff. So like,
Yeah, yeah. And big zombie bugs
yeah,
that, some engineer from Lawrence Livermore Labs on Earth cobble together into these biomechs. Um, so I was like, okay, Spelljammer rocks anyway. Um, oh man, prior to that, I know I worked on Realm Space
okay.
for Spelljammer, the Forgotten Realms solar system. And like I said, I was just like, fine, let me import some anime junk. Why? Because during this time period where I was working as a freelancer, I decided to start shooting up flares. What does that mean in plain English? It means I decided to start visually calling out to people, do you know this stuff?
Yeah.
Because anime was ridiculously new. This is before John Ledford and all the other anime distributor folks got started.
Right. You didn't have like Crunchyroll streaming anime in real
No,
time as it
no,
aired in Japan or anything.
I watched it wrong. God, you hear? No subtitles. Anyway, I decided I was gonna do as much cool anime stuff as I could, throw it into Spelljammer. Done by oh yeah, Tenku Senki Shirato, Heaven War Chronicles Shirato,
Okay.
um, Gamera.
Yeah.
Um, I just went crazy. Anime, tokusatsu, um, all sorts of fun stuff. As much as I could. I'm like, I'm gonna make my name on this.
Yeah, stuff that
So,
like if someone had kind of seen the show immediately would be like, that's from this, that's from this. But if you don't
absolutely,
know, then it's just a cool monster, whatever, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But if you know, you know. And I was allowed to do it. And what can I say except I had a blast? I
That's
had a
cool.
blast because, I sat there and I was like, okay, let me turn an aura battler into game statistics. There are a lot of people who I didn't really have to worry a hell of a lot about balance because, I mean, there are old cosmic heads there that we're looking over everything to make sure that things stayed in balance.
Yeah.
So I was free to just imagine.
That's very cool.
And translate.
That's a really neat, I think that's like every designer's dream position to be in, where you can just kind of do whatever you want and other people will take care of the finer points if it needs to be tweaked or whatever. That's cool. Well, it's funny because I was looking in the list of credits once I realized who you were in relation to this monster. I was looking in the list of credits of this book of other monsters that you had covered, and it's funny because some of them are monsters that I've either covered or have brought up on the channel in other capacity. I was surprised by how many of them. One of them was the stellar dragon, which up until like a year ago I think was the most viewed video on my channel, because stellar dragons are awesome, just like these huge cosmic draconic creatures that have like black holes in their mouths and stuff. Like, I thought that was wild.
Got to go nuts.
Yeah, and the Great Dreamer was another one that I thought was really cool. These just giant space whales that travel around with like their own sphere of water around them and their little posse of krakens and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that one I talked about, I did a video because with 5th edition D&D, with the release of Spelljammer that happened this past August, I did a video about a bunch of monsters I would like to see come back. Basically, this was before we knew what was going to be printed and what wasn't. And yeah, the Great Dreamer was at the top of that list. So I was like, this thing is crazy. Like, it can just make someone immortal once every 100 years, or like it's
I just got to go nuts, like I said.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah, and I love whales, porpoises, etc.
Yeah.
I'm a cetacean fiend, and yeah, the idea of this whale-like being, who's like, yeah, I can dream, I'm free, nobody's gonna touch me. What, honey? Excuse me, my little daughter
no problem
on her thing. Honey, thank you. I think my daughter needs food. Anyway, free to be what I imagined, a cosmic super being to be.
Yeah.
Hey man, like I said, they paid me for it too. Oh yeah.
That's
big,
awesome.
Big fun. Big fun.
Something else that I was wondering was I asked a couple in my community. I told everybody that I was going to do this interview with you for this video, and people were very excited about it, which is cool. I asked a few people just if they wanted to submit any questions, if they had anything for you, and I had a couple good ones come through. One of my viewers, Red Random, asked, he said, did you ever have an interesting design for a monster that never got officially released?
By the long ton.
Yeah.
By the long ton. I mean, sitting there sketching like a madman, because there were times I was fair to middling, and I had like 7 clients I was juggling all at once. When my brain would go into overdrive, and I was just gesture drawing like a crazy person. Oh yeah. They hide in sketchbooks, and they float around in pieces of junk paper, stuff like that.
Sure. That's cool. Yeah,
sorry, you said did I answer that question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, like I can imagine that when you're doing design work over any amount of like years, especially, there's always stuff that gets put to the wayside, right? That was there ever anything that you were like took it to the point where it was essentially ready to go that never ended up making it into the final cut of a book because they had to cut it for space or something like that? If you can remember. If you can't,
I was lucky that way.
Yeah.
I was lucky that way. when I was working with Palladium, size was not an issue.
Right.
Weirdness was definitely not an issue. Simbita and I had a thing where our relationship eventually turned into, okay, I trust you enough. You draw what you want to draw, I'll write around it. Which was a great gift for me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was wild. And, you know, with that gig, anything went. Anything went. And because of that, yeah, I don't even know how many sketches I've thrown away.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get to moving, and after a while, you got to cull stuff.
Sure.
Well, if you could see this room, you'd see about, you know, a metric ton of reference books, sketch pads, and dust, and, you know. So there aren't any, I say all that to say there aren't any unpublished favorite pieces.
Okay. That's
Um,
cool though. Like you said, it sounds like you've had a good track record with getting in with companies that actually value the kind of creativity that you can bring to the table for sure.
I've had my share of luck.
Yeah.
My share of luck. Um, I'll end that question with my favorite pieces are my next ones. The ones I haven't started, haven't completed. Oh, and they in, they inhabit my hard drive now too.
Yeah.
You know, because I got a little rig here and had to go with the times. So a hard drive can hold a hell of a lot more than sheets of paper.
That's true. Yeah. One thin little piece of plastic holds about two
Yeah,
rooms full of stuff. So.
yeah. And, you know, I got a dedicated drive to commission work and game art.
Yeah. Something else that I was curious about was, do you these days, do you have time to play tabletop games much anymore, or?
I've I've kind of gone into my shell that way.
Yeah.
I haven't gamed in ages. I've still got stuff floating around
Yeah.
because you never know when somebody's going to hold you at gunpoint and go, DM a game now. So I
Got to be
remain
prepared.
ever ready. Yeah, I remain ever ready for that. But man, I'm trying to think. The last game, well, my heyday was in the 80s, in the early 80s. I was one of those crazy people experimenting with the D&D system and finding out how many other things I could adapt into the D&D system. So I had a bunch of players who got exposed to some wild stuff.
What was that like when D&D was something that was so new? Because now, like, if I go to a group of friends, even people who don't play tabletop games, and say, hey, do you want to try D&D, they at least have like a vague idea of what that means. So when I say,
Mhm.
come sit down, we're gonna do this, and that's fine. But what was that like at that time, saying like, hey, we're gonna do this new tabletop system, and like just no one having any idea of what that really meant?
Well, shout out to my old gaming group back then. They taught me, well, our credo was modules are for wussies. So the standard was use your imagination, make it up, use the mechanics, make sure that things fall together so you're not just making Monty Hall dungeons.
Right.
Remember that term?
Oh yeah.
And maximum risk, maximum reward.
That's a fun way to play the game. That's always what I think at my home group. We definitely have a more dangerous taste when it comes to that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I'm not talking power gaming so much as like the colonial grills, the social
Yeah.
grills from MC9 came from that old D&D group.
Okay.
Um, I remember there was a bard played by a really greedy person who was always looking to score.
Right.
You know?
Classic.
And I was like, score all you want to, but you better keep your head on a swivel. And this person took their bard into this room, pretty much bashed down the door, ran like a mad person into the room. Yeah, there was loot. There's lots of loot. There is also a gang of grills hiding in the corners and the ceiling. I asked this person, do you look around? No, I'll go for it. Okay, roll on a d6. The person missed the roll. It was a pretty high roll, too. I said, you just sealed your fate.
Yeah.
What happens? Thwack, 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 thwack. These grills messed this character straight on up. And, you know, there was some, well, grills are supposed to be solitary. Are they? Says who?
Yeah, you haven't met these Grell who very clearly are not solitary.
Exactly. You never shook tentacles with this posse.
Yeah.
So I remembered that for MC9 and got to have them codified into law, if you will. And that's their thing. They're sneakers.
Which is great because now there's precedent for that. So now here we are, some 30 years later, in my Spelljammer campaign, where I'm going to include some colonial Grell. And if any player says, "Hey, Grell are supposed to be solitary," I'm going to point at MC9 and say, "Well,
Yeah,
there's precedent for it. Some of them aren't."
yeah. Well, this person got bent, and I was like, "Well, are you aware that Grell have a home world?" No. Well, I guess as with your last dying breath, now you know.
That's so brutal. I love it though. That's something that I think a lot of people talk about all the time, is how OSR, like the old school role playing mindset that came a lot with AD&D and Spelljammer and stuff, was a lot more lethal, right? Like in 5th edition now, I'm not sure if you've played or not, but it's a lot harder to die. Like if you, it's a lot harder to actually have a character die. It's still definitely possible, but there's more wiggle room there. Whereas in like the first and second editions of the game, you were gonna get stomped. That was the expectation a lot of the time, right?
Oh yeah, you know, and you spend years playing a character and nurturing them and watching them grow, and then, you know, to get greased in sometimes really ignominious ways. I understood why they changed that.
Yeah, it's like a knife in the chest kind of. You're like,
Absolutely. I remember, this reminds me, in this another old D&D group that I was with at the same time, I had rolled up this character, Hanako. She was a samurai. The DM at the time decided to play super rough.
right.
Like, if your character dies, you have to burn your character sheet.
Oof.
It's all over. And that was a painful session.
Yeah.
That was where I really got to experience the letdown that comes from losing a character like that.
Yeah.
So that's something that was coming.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's hard to get more people into this thing if, oh, well, your character could be nuked at any time. So
Yeah. And I think that I mean I've always said, you know, whatever you and your group finds fun, that's the correct way to play the game, right?
uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
like there is definitely something to be said for having a few stopgaps in place so that you don't just have some silly unceremonious death for a character that you really
Yeah.
care about. And if you want to play in that kind of more brutal way, I have played campaigns like that, but our group has always decided, okay, we're gonna play this like Tomb of Horrors or something. So
Sure.
everyone bring like 5 character sheets, and you know,
Right,
and it's kind
right.
of fun when you go into it with that expectation. But yeah, just for a normal D&D session, I guess you could say, it can be pretty gut wrenching.
Oh, yeah. And we only played that kind of ultimate death match kind of thing once,
Yeah.
because everybody around the table got to feel the agony.
Hmm.
And the game becomes no fun like that.
Definitely.
At that point, just go out and get a job and
Yeah.
feel the horror of possibly being turned down for that job. That's less painful.
Yeah. At least you don't have emotional investment at that point, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
um just to circle back to the spirit warrior here, another question that one of the viewers submitted from Estefanowski. We something I do on my channel whenever I talk about these monsters is I often give kind of plot hooks and ideas for how you might want to use them, and some of those are taken directly from the text, some of them are just ideas that I come up with or ideas submitted by the community, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Someone asked, what, you as the creator of this monster, what is a way that you would use the spirit warrior if you were gonna, if I said to you, gunpoint, we need to run a campaign right now, and obviously you're prepared for that, if I said that and you want to use a spirit warrior, what do you think would be a cool way to use that monster?
First thing that comes to mind would be, if I was GM at a bunch of paladins or something like that, I would consider, I think, at least 2 characters, asking the players beforehand, do you trust me when you call your warhorse? It would have to be a long campaign.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, um, man, whoo, as an artifact,
Yeah, it
uh,
definitely alludes or lends itself to that idea of like being discovered.
mhm,
It reminded me of I don't know if you've ever seen Gurren Lagann, but
Oh yeah,
that idea of like finding this robot buried under the ground, and then the person who
exactly.
finds it kind of makes a special relationship, and away we go.
Exactly. Yeah, have the call go to one character. Um, Wherein they find that there's a mission that this warrior was unable to finish. But
Right.
they fit the bill. Um,
I like that.
I cannot make you do anything, but I can show you what my mission was. Character is struck dumb, laid out for a day or two, wakes up with the knowledge of what happened, and off we go.
Something that I think you'll get a kick out of. So I'm running just on my own time with some of my friends a Spelljammer campaign right now, and in preparation for making this video, I used had converted the stat block into 5th edition, and I was using like this conversion I had made just to test it out before making it available to the public. And I kind of went the found relic route. Like, they found a spirit warrior in this old ancient abandoned elven ruin and stuff, fought some monsters in there, and then it was just kind of there. And I was like, I don't know who's going to take it, but one of these characters might end up piloting this thing. And the person who ended up piloting it was my friend Eric, who is playing a oh shoot, what are they called? It's an auto gnome, basically.
Okay, yeah.
They've updated the terminology. I can't remember what they're called now, but yeah, he's a robot guy, and he was piloting this mech. And then one of the players was like, "Oh, this is kind of funny. You're a robot piloting a mech made out of organic matter. This is like a reverse Gundam situation going on here." And I was like, "That is hilarious!" Like, it was pretty silly, yeah. But and they loved it. They were like, "What the hell is this thing?" And I was like, "Oh, go look at this MC9. Here it is." But yeah, it's we've had a lot of fun with that for sure. It's a cool monster.
That's again, being an anime geek, it just blew my mind how adaptable so many things are. Really, I can't think of a one I couldn't adapt.
Yeah,
I can't think of a one that isn't adaptable to D&D.
I completely agree.
So yeah, I hope I answered that question fully.
Absolutely, it did. No, this has been very enlightening. It's been really cool. The only other thing that I was meaning to ask you was just, I would love to get some insight into what it was like working with TSR on a product like this. I know we were kind of talking earlier, you were saying they gave you a lot of creative freedom and stuff, but like the actual process for that, would you basically just hand in like, "Hey, here's a new monster with my write-up about it," and then they would just kind of take it and
we were given an allotment of time to get these things done. There was a deadline. And for me, it was stuff as much in before that deadline as I can. Also, now that I think of it more, we had an allotted number of monsters that were assigned to us.
Okay.
Open slot, fill it. Okay, cool. On to the next one. And which is where you get some weirdies like the Witchlight Marauders. At the time, I was reading Clark Ashton Smith and some Lovecraft. Okay. And I realized that, the way Lovecraft is presented just doesn't freak me out enough. Plus the fact, what if a world suffered a Lovecraftian invasion? What would that look like? There were other things in there, but yeah, the Witchlight Marauders was fun because I also got to incorporate some of Antonio Gaudi's art into it. I'm a big fan of his work. And I always thought La Sagrada Familia looked biotech
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I could imagine this, great sessile monster that has just completely subjugated a city. And this thing just squats in the center of town, spitting out mutant monstrosity. And from there, well, that's a whole nother D&D campaign that I would like to run.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a crazy cool gig. It really was.
I liked a lot, or like a lot rather, how at least a few of the different monsters that you put forth in this book too, all kind of are interconnected in certain ways. Like you have the Witchlight Marauders, and then the Spirit Warriors were like the response to those creatures existing, and then like the Bionoids also being part of this whole narrative of like the elves doing all this crazy experimentation during this wartime and stuff like that.
Yeah, give
I
the elves Guyver, give them Dunbine, give them buggy stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time, but my last question is, in general, is there anything that you want to take a moment to promote or just give a shout out to, or anything at all?
Um, Trying to think. Nothing to promote right now. Why? Because I'm getting back my art legs,
Hmm.
and I've learned that like doing commissions still feels a lot like doing somebody else's homework.
Yeah.
So I'm right now, if I'm going to promote anything, it's me. Um, I'm finally getting back to drawing the things I really wanted to draw.
That's awesome.
Um, I guess getting back my sense of self
Hmm.
when it comes to art. After a while freelancing, if you're doing a number of different styles, I learned I could get lost really easily.
Yeah.
And now I'm just letting it fly and going, I ain't doing right now, I'm not doing anybody else's stuff but mine. Everybody else has got to wait. Um, I have much weirdness to draw. And if I could open my hard drive to you, I'd show you some of that weirdness, because right now, promotion, okay, yeah, I'll promote it. Um, I got a piece on my hard drive that clocks in at 35 feet long. Um, right now by 5 feet wide.
Okay. That's huge.
It's taken me years, um, but it's something that I'm slowly accelerating on now. Now that I'm nailing down a workflow and realizing that all these years have taught me a lot of dirty tricks that are easier to do in Photoshop and Illustrator than ever,
Hmm.
Um, about computers. I love drawing by hand, but the things I can draw by hand and assemble in cyberspace are just beyond anything I've done.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep your eyeballs peeled, because there's much more strangeness coming out of the studio.
Awesome. I know I will be looking forward to checking that out when you post some of that online.
Count
And
on that.
I'm sure a lot of people who are watching right now will also be interested in that, because if there's one thing that I've learned doing this like extremely nerdy deep dives into all this old school RPG stuff, there's a lot of people out there who get just as excited about this stuff as I do.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
and that's kind of the beauty of the internet nowadays, I guess, is it's so easier than ever to find those people. So
Yeah.
we'll all, I'm sure we'll all definitely be excited to check that out when you post anything
Oh,
related to
and
it.
now that a synapse closed, well, you can find my artwork at Newton Ewell's, Newtman001 at DeviantArt. I'm starting to put stuff up on Pixiv now, and I'm also on ArtStation
Awesome.
under my name. So
Very
yeah,
cool. Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to leave a link to all those places in the pinned comment on the video when I eventually put it up, so that people can easily find all your stuff. And
please do, and thank you. And if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me.
absolutely. No, and thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and talk about this. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been really, like, it's been a cool glimpse into a world that I otherwise spend a lot of time reading about, but it's rare that I get to actually talk to people who are like the humans behind the stuff that we're covering. So
Mhm.
this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Hey,
chat with me.
no problem.